So yesterday we have studied the precipitation of salts. So first of all we will know sol. In a sol, colloidal particles carry charges. If they carry positive charges, the salts are called positive sol. If the particles carry negative charges, they are called negative sol. For example, As2S3 sol is a negative sol because of the adsorption of S minus ions, therefore it is negative sol. Here the particles carry negative charges, therefore it is a negative sol. For the so the charge on the colloidal particles is responsible for the stability of the sol, and also the Brownian movement is also responsible for the stability of the sol. For the salt to be precipitated, we have to remove the charge on the colloidal particles. So to remove the charge on the colloidal particles or to precipitate salt, we have various methods. Number 1, by electrophoresis. Number 2, by boiling. Number 3, by mutual coagulation. And number 4, by the addition of electrolyte. So salts carrying negative charge are called negative salts. Similarly, salt particles carrying positive charges are called positive salts. Example for positive salt: ferric hydroxide salt, FeOH thrice salt. It is positive because it adsorbs ferric ions and becomes positively charged salt. So charge on the colloidal particles is responsible for the stability of the salt. For the precipitation of the salt, we have to remove the charge on the colloidal particles. To remove the charge on the colloidal particles, the last method is by the addition of electrolyte. Say for example, sodium chloride. What is an electrolyte? An electrolyte is a substance which contains positive ions as well as negative ions. When an electrolyte is added into a salt, say for example negative salt, positive ions of the electrolyte neutralizes the negative charges on the colloidal particles, and after removing the charges, the particles will settle at the bottom. So that means for the neutralization of negatively charged colloidal particles, positive ions of the electrolytes are effective. These positively charged ions of the electrolytes are called precipitating ions. Precipitating ions. So for the precipitation of negative salt, positive ions of the electrolytes are effective. Similarly, for the precipitation of positive salt, which ions are effective? Here negative ions are effective. Negative ions of the electrolytes are effective. Here negative ions are called precipitating ions of the electrolyte. So, and then coming to Hardy-Schulze rule. What the Hardy-Schulze rule says, say for example there are many electrolytes, namely sodium chloride, barium chloride, aluminum chloride. So for the precipitation of negative salt, positive ions of the electrolytes are important. So there are different electrolytes where the positive ions are different. Here, so positive ion of sodium is +1, barium is +2, aluminum is +3. So what the Hardy-Schulze rule says, the precipitating power of the ion, precipitating power of the precipitating ion is directly proportional to its valency. That means higher the valency of the ion, higher is its precipitating power. So aluminum ion valency is +3, its precipitating power is more. Sodium ion valency is +1, its precipitating power is less. So this is Hardy-Schulze rule. That means higher the valency of the ion, higher is its precipitating power. So this is Hardy-Scott's rule. Similarly, for the precipitation of positive salt, negative ions are important. Negative ions are called the precipitating ions. Here there are different electrolytes, namely NaCl and then Na2SO4, Na3PO4, etc. Here the valency of Cl minus is +1. Here it is -1. Here it is 2 minus. Here it is 3 minus. So as the valency increases, we can precipitate this positive salt either by addition of sodium chloride or sodium sulfate or sodium phosphate. Which is more effective? Here phosphate ions are more effective than sulfate ions than chloride ions, because valency of phosphate is 3. Therefore, the precipitating power of PO4 3 minus is greater than SO4 2 minus, which are greater than Cl minus. Here also the precipitating power of Al3 plus is greater than precipitating power of Ba2 plus, which is greater than Na plus. So this is Hardy-Scott's rule. Higher the valency of the precipitating ion, higher is its precipitating power. And now we will study flocculation value. What is flocculation value? Flocculation value of an electrolyte. So what is flocculation value? Flocculation value may also be understood like this. It is the quantity of electrolyte required for the precipitation of a salt. So here there are 3 electrolytes: sodium chloride, barium chloride, aluminum chloride. So which one is needed less and which one is needed more for the precipitation of a given amount of salt is expressed and compared in terms of flocculation value. The precipitating power of an electrolyte is expressed and compared in terms of flocculation or coagulation value. So what is the definition of flocculation value? Definition of flocculation value or coagulation value: the minimum concentration of an electrolyte in bracket in millimoles per dm cube. Minimum concentration of an electrolyte in millimoles per dm cube required to precipitate 1 liter of a colloidal solution, 1 liter of a colloidal solution in 2 hours. So what is the meaning of this one? I have got 1 liter of a colloidal solution or a salt. So I have to precipitate this salt. Then I have to add an electrolyte. So how much of electrolyte is required for the precipitation of 1 liter of a salt in 2 hours? That is the definition of flocculation value or coagulation value. So flocculation value or coagulation value, it can also be understood like this: quantity of electrolyte required is inversely proportional to the charge on the precipitating ion. So flocculation value is inversely proportional to the charge on the precipitating ion. That means higher the charge on the precipitating ion, less is the amount of electrolyte required. Say for example, if I want to precipitate 1 liter of If I want to precipitate 1 liter of ferric chloride solution, what is the quantity here? It is 1 liter of ferric hydroxide salt. There are 3 electrolytes, namely sodium chloride I can use, sodium sulfate I can use, sodium phosphate I can use. So by experiment it is found that the amount of sodium phosphate required is 1 gram, sodium sulfate required is 2 gram, and sodium chloride required is 3 grams. So which is required less? Sodium phosphate is required less when compared to sodium chloride. This is because higher the valency of the precipitating ion, these are the precipitating ions, this is a positive salt, the precipitating ions are negative ions of the electrolyte. Higher the valency of the precipitating ion, smaller is the amount of electrolyte required. That is what is known as flocculation value. That means higher the valency of the precipitating ion, this is a positive salt, precipitating ions are negative ions of the electrolyte. Higher the valency of the precipitating ion, lower is the amount of electrolyte required. So since phosphate carries 3 minus, the amount required is less. Sulfate is 2 minus, it is still more. Cl 1 minus, its weight is still more. So higher the valency, flocculation value is inversely proportional to charge on the precipitating ion. Higher the valency or higher the charge on the precipitating ion, smaller is the amount of the electrolyte required. So that is the meaning of flocculation value. So in between sodium chloride and aluminum chloride, in between sodium chloride and aluminum chloride, which is required less and which is required more for the precipitation of As2S3 negative salt. So questions will be asked like this. So I have to precipitate As2S3 salt. As2S3 salt. As2S3 salt is a negative salt. I have 2 electrolytes, namely NaCl and AlCl3. For the precipitation of negative salt, I have to observe the valency of the positive ion. Here the valency of the positive ion, sodium is +1. Here the valency of aluminum is +3. Which is required less? Aluminum chloride is required less because the valency of the aluminum ion is more. So here AlCl3 is required less since the valency of Al3 plus is more. What is its valency? +3. Similarly, which is required more? NaCl is required more since the valency of Na plus is less, that is +1. So I will give you another example. So in between CaSO4 and Ca3PO4 twice, this is calcium sulfate and calcium phosphate, which is required less and which is required more for the precipitation of the positive salt FeOH thrice. So here which is the salt? FeOH thrice. It is a positive salt. So for the precipitation of this salt, we have two electrolytes, namely CaSO4, here Ca3PO4 twice. So I am precipitating positive salt. I have to concentrate on the valency of negative ions. Here the valency of sulfate ion is +2. Here the valency of phosphate ion is -2. Here it is -3. We are precipitating positive salt. I have to concentrate on the valency of negative ions. Here the valency of negative ion is -2. Here the valency of negative ion is -3, which is required less. Here Ca3PO4 twice is required less. Since the valency of PO4 3 minus is more, that is -3. So CaSO4 is required more since the valency of SO4 is less, that is -2. So next we will study protective colloids. What are protective colloids? Say for example, here is a salt which is gold salt. This is gold salt. Gold salt is a leophobic salt. What is leophobic salt? It is a solvent hating salt. And here it is a gelatin solution or gum solution. So gelatin solution, it is a leophilic salt. Leophilic salt. This is leophobic salt. This is leophilic salt. Leophilic salts are more stable than leophobic salts. Leophobic salts are less stable. They are more stable because of high solvation. High solvation. So what is the meaning of solvation? So in leophilic salts, since there is great affinity between dispersed phase and dispersion particles, around the colloidal particles there is a sheet of, so suppose this is a colloidal particle, around this colloidal particle there is a sheet of solvent particles. So this is colloidal particles and this is sheet of solvent particles. So these solvent particles surround the solute particles because of the great affinity between dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Therefore, stability still increases. So stability, as I have told you, stability of colloidal solution. What is stability? The colloidal particles should not settle down at the bottom of the solution. That is what is known as stability. So stability of colloidal solutions are due to what? Due to the presence of like charges. The stability is more. Due to Brownian movement, the stability is more. And due to high solvation, the stability of leophilic salts are also more. So finally, leophilic salts are more stable than leophobic salts. For example, gold salt can be precipitated by the addition of 1 gram of sodium chloride. So if I add 1 gram of sodium chloride to this leophilic salt, it won't precipitate. That means it is more stable than leophobic salt. That means leophilic salts are more stable than leophobic salts. Leophilic salts are more stable than leophobic salts because of high solvation. Suppose if a little leophilic salt is added into leophobic salt, the stability of lyeophobic salts also increases. This process is known as protective action of the lyophilic salt, or it will protect the lyeophobic salt against the action of electrolytes. These are called the salts which are added are called protective colloids. So, lyophilic salts are more stable than lyeophobic salts. If a little lyophilic salt is added into lyeophobic salt, the stability of lyeophobic salt also increases. The lyophilic salt which increases the stability of lyeophobic salt is called protective colloid. This action is known as protective action. Then what is the definition of protective action? Definition. Write down: when a lyophilic colloid is added to a lyeophobic colloid, the stability of lyeophobic colloid also increases. First up, this action of a lyophilic colloid is called protective action, and the lyophilic colloid used to increase the stability of lyeophobic colloid is called protective colloid. So this is protective action and this is protective colloid. For example, if a little gelatin is a lyophilic colloid is added to a gold sol is a lyeophobic colloid, the stability of gold sol increases. So here gelatin is the protective colloid, and this phenomenon is called protective action. So this is also important: protective colloids, protective action, etc. So now we will study what are emulsions. So I have already defined what are emulsion: a colloidal solution in which the dispersed phase is solid and dispersion medium is also solids are called emulsions. A colloidal system in which the dispersed phase is a liquid and the dispersion medium is also liquid. That means a colloidal system in which both dispersed phase and dispersion medium or liquids are called emulsions. How emulsions are formed? When two immiscible liquids are shaked or two partially miscible liquids are shaked well, we will get an emulsion. For example, when castor oil is shaken with water or kerosene oil is shaken with water, we will get emulsion. So an emulsion is obtained when two immiscible liquids or two partially miscible liquids are shaken well. For example, so then out of two liquids, one liquid is usually water. So when two immiscible liquids are shaken well or two partially miscible liquids are shaken well, we will get an emulsion. Out of two liquids, one liquid is usually water. For example, when castor oil is shaken with water, this is water and this one is castor oil or kerosene oil is shaken with water, we will get an emulsion. So coming to the types of emulsion. So as I have told you, out of two liquids, one liquid is usually water. So based on this, there are two types of emulsion. Number one, water in oil type emulsion. Here, water is the dispersed phase and oil is the dispersion medium. Water is the dispersed phase and oil is the dispersion medium. That means if a little water is shaken with large amount of oil, you will get water in oil type emulsion. Example for water in oil type emulsion, cream and then cod liver oil. These are examples for water in oil type emulsion. They are also represented as W by O. Second type of emulsion is oil in water type. It is represented as O bar W. So here, which is the dispersed phase here? Oil is the dispersed phase and water is the dispersion medium. So if a little oil is shaken with large amount of water, you will get oil in water type of emulsions. Coming to examples, so milk is an example for oil in water type emulsion, and then vanishing cream is an example for oil in water type emulsions. So usually these emulsions are unstable. That means when an oil is shaken with water, you will get an emulsion. If this emulsion is left for some time, oil will be separated and water will be separated. So to increase the stability of these emulsions, we will use another substance which is called emulsifier or emulsifying agent. That means to increase the stability of an emulsion, we will use a third substance called emulsifier or emulsifying agents. Now we will know what is an emulsifier or emulsifying agent. Emulsifier or emulsifying agent. The substance which increases the stability of an emulsion. An emulsion is called an emulsifier. Emulsifier or emulsifying agent. Emulsifying agent. So example, when you shake kerosene oil with water, this is kerosene oil plus water. This is water. You will get an emulsion. So after some time, kerosene and oil will be separated into two layers. If you add a soap, little soap, the stability of emulsion increases. Here soap is called an emulsifier or emulsifying agents. So examples for emulsifiers. Example for emulsifiers. So as I have told you, there are two types of emulsions. Water in oil type emulsions. The emulsifiers are heavy metal salts of higher fatty acids. Number 2, long chain alcohols, etc. are emulsifiers for water in oil type. Second type, oil in water type emulsions. Oil in water type emulsions. The emulsifiers are proteins, gum, starch, soaps and detergents, etc. So now note, I will give you an important note. Milk is an emulsion of oil in water type. Milk is an emulsion of oil in water type, in which liquid fat is distributed in water, and it is stabilized by the protein casein. It is stabilized by the protein casein. So you will be asked, give me an example for emulsion of oil in water type. Milk is an emulsion of oil in water type, in which liquid fat is distributed in water. So to increase its stability, natural proteins, namely casein, is used as an emulsifier or emulsifying agents. So lastly, we will come to the applications of colloids. So colloids finds many applications, out of which we will consider only 3 applications. First one, colloids are used in medicines. So medicines used in medicine. Number 2, used in the preparation, used in the purification of drinking water. And number 3, what are the applications of colloids in industries? First, we will discuss the application of colloids in medicine. Many medicines are in the colloidal form. The colloids, the medicines in the colloidal forms are more effective and easily assimilated. Medicines in the colloidal form are more effective and easily assimilated. For example, argyrol. It is a silver sol used as eye lotion. Argyrol is a silver sol used as eye lotion. Number 2, milk of magnesia. So it is nothing but magnesium hydroxide. It is used in the form of syrup, and it acts as antacids. So persons suffering from severe acidity will take these syrups, milk of magnesia, namely gelosyl syrup, Digin syrups. They contain magnesium hydroxide. It is in the syrup form and acts as antacid. So many ointments, lotions will be in the colloidal form. Therefore, medicines in the colloidal form are easily assimilated and more effective. Coming to the application of colloids in drinking water. So, in the purification of river water, we will use alum. Alum is used to settle suspended impurities in the river water. So what is alum? Alum is K2Al2SO4 thrice K2SO4 24H2O. This is known as potash alum. So it contains aluminum ions and potassium ions. So clay, suspended impurities in water is clay. It is a negative colloidal particles. Clay is a negative colloidal particle suspended in water. Suppose this is water, it contains clay. So during rainy season, the river water is turbid due to the presence of clay particles, which are negatively charged particles. If alum is added, so alum supplies positive ions. These positive ions neutralizes the negative charge on the clay particles. As a result, the clay particles will settle down and you will get clear water which is used for drinking. So alum is used to settle suspended impurities in the river water, and the water becomes pure and it is used for drinking purposes. So what is alum? You have to know the formula. Al2SO4 thrice K2SO4 24H2O. It is called potash alum also. So alum is also used in saloons or in cutting shops. During shavings, sometimes cuts will be formed and bleeding takes place. To stop bleeding, alum is touched. Alum coagulates the blood. As the blood coagulates, the bleeding stops. So here alum acts as an electrolyte. When electrolyte is added into a colloidal solution, the blood coagulates or precipitates and thereby blocks the veins. So alum is used to stop bleeding during cuttings. So what alums do? Alums coagulates the colloidal blood and stop bleeding. So and then coming to the industrial applications of colloids. Third application is industrial application. So in industries, disposal of smoke is a very big problem. So the control board people will ask the industries to clean up the dust and smokes and then leave only pure air. Suppose this is the smoke or dust and this is the chimney. So this is called electrostatic precipitators. This is Cattrall electrostatic precipitators. So here there is charged electrodes and here it is another charged electrodes. So suppose this is positive electrode and this one is negative electrode, or suppose this is negative electrode, this one is positive electrode, whatever it may be, positive and this one is negative electrode. Here dust or smoke is a colloidal solution. So when these dust and smokes are passed through charged plates, what happens? Since the colloidal particles carry charges, they are attracted by the electrodes. After reaching the electrode, they loses the charges. If the particle loses the charges, they will convert it into powder and then they will settle down. So this is dust or carbon particles. And pure air will go out. So dust or smoke free air goes out. So this is the application of colloids in industries. So industrial application to remove dust and smoke in the industrial application. To remove dust or smoke from the air. This is based on the principle of electrophoresis. So dust and smoke particles coming out of the chimney are passed through electrostatic precipitators where electrodes are fitted. The dust and smoke particles are nothing but colloidal particles. When they are passed through these charged particles, they loses the charges and converted into carbon or dust particles and they can be removed. This is how we can purify smoke or dust coming out of industries. These are the three applications of colloids. One is in medicine, one is in the purification of drinking water, and one is in industries, that is electron precipitators.